Podio as a whole, when it comes down to our organizational structure, is made up of two major components that we refer to as workspaces and apps. Your workspaces are always located on this dropdown in the left-hand side, and this is how you would be choosing to organize or bucket your information together. A lot of times we will see different workspaces for different departments. This way each department does have its own home environment. However, you can do everything in one workspace if you prefer. There is no right or wrong way to set that up. A lot of that does come down to just personal preference. The big thing to just keep in mind here is that if someone is a member of a workspace, they do have access to everything saved within that workspace. So if you do have anything that needs a little bit more privacy, you just want to make sure you have that saved in a workspace that you've given less people access to. The other main part of Podio, and this is what makes up each one of those individual workspaces, are what we call apps, and those are those icons you can see across the top here. Apps within Podio are solely just your templates. So this is not pulling from anything outside of the platform, but managing a meeting is going to be a different template than the actual client information. So we'd want two different apps for those items to make sure that we're tracking the information in the way that makes sense. In order to get these apps within your workspace, you always have two options. You can either create your own, much simpler than it may sound. It's just a drag and drop process. We give you a list of several fields. You're able to place them in order that you prefer, rename those, and save. Or if you prefer, we do have this app market available. These apps have either been created internally by Podio or by one of our external partners where we have approved that you're able to download into your own workspace. In a nutshell, boilerplate templates. With these, you can search by keyword. We have them organized by both function and industry, and you do have the ability to make modifications. So if you see one that is close to what you're looking for and you do want to change some of the terms or add or remove a few fields, you do have the ability to do that. Hopping back, what we're looking at here is a Workspace Dashboard or a Workspace homepage. On the left-hand side, you'll always see the name of your workspace. You'll see your users. You'll have the share something line. This is really great for things like team updates. And below that, you have a running activity feed, which can show you all the changes that have occurred within this workspace, who's made those changes, and when those happened. So it's a good bird's eye view of what's been going on throughout the day. On the right-hand side, where we see these boxes, we refer to these as tiles. So when you see this button that says Add Tile, that's what that's in reference to. You can really save anything in these tiles that's going to make the day-to-day easier for you and your team. So shortcuts to reporting, shortcuts to calendar, to task lists, it really is your choice. All 7 users in this case are looking at the same tiles here. If an individual was logging in and perhaps just wanted to see their own tasks or their own reports, all they'd have to do is click this Podio button in that blue bar across the top to take them to their own personal dashboard. So it's the best of both worlds in the fact that we are having this collaborative space where the work is occurring, but we're enabling each individual to organize in the way that's going to make them the most efficient. Last but not least, for the basics, we do also have a chat feature. This is built into Podio, so not separate like something like Slack might be, but is living within the Podio platform itself. With these, you can do individual or group messaging. Those conversations do archive throughout the life of the account. And as Podio does have a mobile app available for both Android and iOS systems, those chats can come through with push notifications directly to your device, very similar to a Google message or a LinkedIn message. One of the main issues we're going to be looking at today would be onboarding of new clients and how manual that process tends to currently be. The workflow you're about to see includes Podio, ShareFile, and Write Signature, as well as another third-party option called Momentum to automate this process out, thus saving time and money. So here, I'm going to pull up what we have as a web form. So this is something that's generated from Podio based off of those apps that we showed previously. I'm able to take any of those templates and make it a blank form that can be filled out and submitted directly into my Podio system without actually giving access to that user. So here I have a web form based off of my client's app. We have some basic information here. These fields, again, completely customizable. So we can go ahead and fill this out. While I'm filling this out, I think it's important to mention that while we're looking at this as a link option, so you can hyperlink this out, This can also be embedded directly into your site. We give you the code when you're setting the web form up itself, and you're able to just attach that into your site if you'd want that to be all in one area. So here we see a sample of a web form that had been filled out by a client. So I can see all those fields that I needed are here. I've given a list of different services that this client may be interested in. This particular example we're highlighting today is based around accounting or financial services. So the services we're offering here are going to mirror that. But once we have all that information put in, I can go ahead and submit that and get this nice little thank you note. This is customizable, or it can route directly back to your website. And with the ability of using things like CSS, we can get some custom branding involved in here as well. Now, since that client just submitted that web form, when I go into my client's app in Podio, I can see that web form has immediately pulled through here. So no manual entry. Because the client submitted that, it's now automatically in my client's app. While we're in the client's app, this is a good overview of what inside an app can look like. I'm always going to be able to see everything that's saved to that specific template. So in this case, I have 34 clients. I can view them all right here. Currently, I have it in a table view. If we did want to change that to a badge view, a card view, an activity view, or a calendar view, you do have that option on both an individual and default setting level. Other thing worth pointing out here is the ability for filters. So you're able to filter based off of any measurable or tangible field within your template, whether that be person responsible internally, due date, submission date, status. As long as you have those fields within your template, you are able to filter by them. So I will hop into this sample client. So here we can see all the information that Delia had filled out on that web form has pulled into the correct areas of this app in Podio. You may also notice that there are a few fields here that were not visible in that web form, such as payment option, client status, or date submitted. We actually are able to hide fields from your app in that web form. This way, you're only getting the information you need from the client, but you're able to still continue to work as that information comes through. Here as well, you may notice for that date submitted, I did also have that automatically populate based off of the information given. This way, I always have the accurate date of when that new client submission has come through. The services interested in has automatically populated based off of what was selected in that web form. And you can see here on the right-hand side, I also have this set where a task would automatically generate whenever a new client form has been submitted. This way, we can make sure that nothing is slipping through the cracks and it's getting assigned to the correct professional. I'll go down here and mark that task as complete, and then attach, in this case, the assigned CPA. Similarly, worth pointing out, we do have areas for things like notes. We can attach files directly here. We'll actually be touching on that momentarily. But for the sake of example, let's say we've gone through, we've had those conversations, and now I'm ready to move this as opposed to a lead to an actual client. This is where the automation is going to start to take place. All of the automation within Podio is condition and trigger based. What we mean by that is very logic heavy. So your conditions can be those if-then statements or rules that you can put in place where something must be true in order for an action to occur. And it triggers whatever's actually kicking off that workflow itself. Similarly, when we got this form into Podio and that task automatically generated to assign the correct financial advisor, I used the item creation to be that trigger. Here, I have the condition of where it needs to go from lead to new client in order for that workflow to generate. So I'll go ahead and move that into that next stage. And if you look on the right-hand side, you can notice some things have automatically occurred and are continuing to occur. Here, I have where the engagement letter status is updated to sent, as well as that date populating, so I know what day it went out. And you may ask why that would be important here. And that's going to be one of the big things with Podio that you don't see in a lot of other systems, and that's document generation. Podio has the ability to automatically generate out templated PDFs. So it can be your own template, but what you're able to do is define which fields from Podio can pull out of our system and go into the designated areas of that document. So I'll go ahead and pull up this example. Here we have an engagement letter. You can see I've added my company header, but it's directed specifically to this client. So I can see Delia's name there. I have the appropriate financial advisor here and those services that had been selected in the correct spot. This again can be whatever template you need. In this example, we are showing it as an engagement letter, but if this needed to be an invoice, a contract, a proposal, or even a project summary report, all of those options would be possible. Now that we've created that document, the next step in this process would be to get that document signed. And this is where we can start to bring in Write Signature. Not only am I able to generate that PDF through Podio, but because of those conditional workflows, I can have that send directly to the client via Write Signature. Here we'll go ahead and show the client view as far as what they would be receiving and what the experience is on that end. Now as a client view, here I've logged into that email address and I can see I have a new message from Charlie Brinson. I can go ahead and open that up. Hey Delia, please sign this document, and it's a copy of that engagement letter. So this is all powered through Write Signature. When I go ahead and review and sign, I'm seeing that exact PDF that we just generated via Podio. With this, if I needed to include text fields for things like initials, I'm able to do so with using text tags within Podio. Or it's important to mention that that auto generation can also occur with Write Signature templates as opposed to just the PDF creation. So with this, we can use our mouse to sign. If I'm on a tablet or a phone, I can use my finger. Or in this case, we can go ahead and type to sign as well. You can see I've also included an area where they have to select the date and print their name. If you just need the signature, it is important to note that those fields can be removed. Now Delia, as my client, can go ahead and submit that signature. And by submitting, she's agreeing to the terms of use, privacy policy, and e-sign consent of the tool. That's going to keep this a legally binding document. Here you can see once that document's been signed, that I have a full overview and history. That history is going to include a date timestamp and the IP address of every action that's occurred on the document, as well as providing a signature certificate for this document for any filing or auditory purposes. So once this document is signed, there are still multiple steps that must occur within this onboarding process. Again, cutting to Podio, the signature of this document itself can act as one of those triggers that we had previously mentioned. So when I hop back into Podio, I can see that because that signature was received, my engagement letter status has automatically moved from sent to yes. It's automatically populated the date those services are starting based off of the signature. And we can see here on the right-hand side that I have a copy of sort of a welcome email that I'd created that's able to send to the client as well. So similarly to that PDF generation, we can also do templated emails that can send out to people both inside and outside of your company, depending on the conditions you would put in place. So here on the client view, I can see that I have a templated welcome email from my assigned financial advisor, just basically welcoming Delia to our firm, as well as letting her know that she will be shortly receiving an email to join a share file folder. One of the things that Podio is able to automate is folder creation within the share file system. So no more manually having to go in and create that folder for those clients or even add them to it. The system itself can automate that entire process based off of those conditional workflows. So here we can see, similarly to receiving that email from that financial advisor, I also have that welcome email from ShareFile inviting me to the folder that was just created. So now that we have my client onboarded within my system, in this particular instance, we need specific documentation. So if we're looking at accounts payable or tax prep, there's always certain documents that I'm going to need in order to move forward with that service. When I scroll down to the bottom here, we can see under those related items that I now have a request that's populated. And when I click into that, that's going to bring me directly into what we call a request list app. It's pulled my client name. It's automatically pulled that client record through. One thing people may not know or utilize as much within Podio is its relationship database capabilities. So you are able to link things across different apps and different workspaces. That's what I've shown here. So if I'm in this request and I need a refresher on Delia's information, I can go ahead and just click that and it'll bring me back to that original client page. If we look at this list of files to request, because of the services Delia had selected, I know that I'll always need an I-9 and a W-2. So I've had those auto-populate here, taking a lot of the manual steps out of it and making sure that we're keeping that process as smooth as possible. If I needed to add additional documentation here, I can just click in, hit enter, and require more documents. Now the big question is, how do we get this request to the client? This is all being managed in Podio. My client's not logging into Podio. And we want to make sure that we're getting those documents back in a timely manner. This is where we can start to leverage a third-party tool called Momentum. Momentum does integrate directly with Podio, and it's allowing us to leverage those web forms with dependencies to even add more value into what this solution can provide. So here I have my list of files to request, and now I want to ask Podio to generate that list. So I need to create the request itself. We can see in that status dashboard that those 2 requests are showing as incomplete, and my overall status is showing as incomplete as well. So I know that I have not received those documents, but the request is waiting. Since I need to get that request to the client, I'll just move through that next phase to send the email with the request list. You can see on the right-hand side that I have a comment that's automatically generated based off of my flow. Hopping back to the client view, I can now see that I've received that email from Axe Capital, including the requests of the files we need to view. You can see I have that as 2 separate hyperlinks that have their own status. So with this, I'll go ahead and click into my W-2. By leveraging Momentum in tandem with Podio, ShareFile, and Write Signature, we can see I'm able to attach the files directly to this request, as well as add any notes. So if there's questions that a client had in mind, or if they needed to add an addendum, they can actually do that directly on the request itself. So now as the client, I can go ahead and browse and upload the appropriate document. Here I can see that document has been uploaded. If I need to include any notes, as I'd mentioned, I can do that right here. And now I can submit that through. Returning back to the email, I can go into the second hyperlink. Again, I can attach said document. And similarly, submit that through. Your client's work is now done, which is just creating a really great user experience on that client end. Hopping back into Podio, on the employee end, I can see both documents have been received as that status dashboard has updated to complete. And scrolling down in those related items, I'm able to view the full details. So I have the status of the individual document within the request, as well as the note that had been submitted. Now that we have these documents, we want to make sure those are routing back to our secure document storage system, in this case, ShareFile. So here, I can either create a brand new folder that would hold all requests based off of that folder generation workflow, or I can actually have these documents saved to that existing folder we had created for our client. By selecting that option, the workflow is now clicking into place. I can see that it's still functioning here on the right-hand side, and as soon as that's completed, it will let me know via that update that we're good to go. So I can see that update here. To show how this looks on the employee end, when I hop into that ShareFile account, Here I can see my new folder with that date and time stamp that shows that this just generated out. From the engagement letter down to the W-2 have automatically uploaded into this correct folder. And I can see that Delia has been added as a user. Now it's important to note that customization is key within Podio. So while some of the terms that I've used or the steps that I have taken may not exactly match this particular process for your company, you can tweak these workflows or these templates to better suit your needs. And from here, we've been able to leverage all those work solutions from Citrix, so including Podio, Write Signature, and ShareFile, as well as that third-party solution of Momentum tools to bring this entire onboarding process through an automated stage. Through our algorithm, we are able to show that this workflow from start to finish save up to an hour and a half of manual labor, thus showing the benefit of bringing on an efficiency tool such as Podio, Write Signature, and ShareFile. Thank you all very much for your time today. We really appreciate you attending this webinar. If you did enjoy this or know of a few clients who may benefit, we are planning a Podio webinar series to continue to launch through the rest of the year.